Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Box, again with Dr. Ronald G. Taylor, sponsored by Novo Dia. And also want to just really say thank you for all the support and feedback that you've given us around these conversations. We try to keep them as authentic as possible. I'm a retired superintendent with about 30 years of public education experience that includes being a teacher, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and also superintendent. And for those who are interested in reading some great stories about careers that are interesting and about the fight for instructional and educational integrity and equity, you can also feel free to look for my book. It's The Courage to Lead with Integrity for Equity, an authentic educational equity journey that's available everywhere. There's also, of course, a link on my LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to welcome to Beyond the Box Miss Dixie Rosier. Dixie Rosier serves as the Assistant Superintendent of Learning and Instruction for Hobbs Municipal Schools in Hobbs, New Mexico. In this capacity, she oversees curriculum development, instructional practices, and professional development initiatives across the district. She is instrumental in shaping the district's educational strategy with a particular emphasis on literacy development and teacher excellence. Rozier directly leads efforts to support teachers, principals, and students through research based instructional practices and comprehensive support systems. So, what is Dixie's work with Hobbs connection to our podcast theme? We believe that she exemplifies thinking beyond traditional educational models. The district has positioned itself as an innovator in New Mexico education, particularly through its commitment to building career pathways, investing in teacher excellence, and creating community centered literacy initiatives. Her role as assistant superintendent directly reflects a beyond the box approach to education, moving away from conventional instructional practices towards integrated, community responsive solutions that prepare students for diverse futures. Welcome to our podcast, Dixie.
It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So, our first topic really centers around building a literacy rich culture through community partnerships. Can you tell us and describe how Reading Under the Lights came about and what makes it different from traditional literacy programs?
Oh, great. Well, our Reading Under the Lights is really a small initiative under a bigger umbrella. So, once upon a time, I was sitting in a meeting, and our community does this program where they arrest community members, and as a fundraiser, they bail you out of jail. So you get hauled away in a cop car, and then you solicit community members to pay your bail per se. And so the intent of my arrest was actually the community. Our United Way coordinator was actually pitching the idea of Reading Under the Lights. This is our third year. We're a campaign for grade level city. So we are part of a campaign for grade level reading. And it was one of our first kickoff events. So from that arrest, we planned to have our first Reading Under the Lights 3 years ago. And this is where we have a Friday night lights on our football field. We invite community members, kiddos. We have a speaker who comes. We had 2 years ago, we had the reader Pete the Cat. Eric Litwin was a phenomenal. He's an author, and just to see the looks on the crowd of that engagement and families around literacy. It's not because literacy was your homework or you had to read because you're getting a grade. It was the love of literacy. And so Reading Under the Lights it exemplifies how we want reading to be connected from birth to third grade and beyond. That our focus is from birth to third grade across our community.
Oh my goodness, that is just so innovative. I love that. And so, how did you engage partners like United Way and JF Maddox Foundation for this initiative?
So the initiative was brought to us by the foundation, and a group of us leaders. The foundation also runs it's called Maddox Leadership Institute, and I had been a member of that before. So I began creating some community connections just in some of those leadership opportunities. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago, I would sit at my office and I'd be like, I don't need the community telling me what I need to do for a job. But as I've grown in a leadership position, we cannot do this job without our community. And we are serving our community. Our schools are not just a silo. We're not a business of ourselves. Our business is to produce community ready citizens. And so, really hearing from the community, our reading scores are not where we want them to be. They're still not. But what do we do as a community? Because the school can't do it alone, parents can't do it alone, but our businesses need literate folks to operate every day. And so we probably our first couple of meetings we had 30 people around the table just brainstorming and writing the application for campaign for grade level reading, and kind of narrowed it in. Obviously, we took the data from our schools, our third grade literacy and our kindergarten incoming ready data to inform the path. But it has just grown beyond. I mean, like I said, reading under the lights is just this small little piece now. We have community libraries. Our public library participates. Businesses have little reading nooks. We have some of our oil field partners donate books. It's just become this whole community connection around literacy and the importance of it.
Oh, I love that. And it's just so true. I have similar stories from my career where we're just not inside of this building, right? We're connected to our kids, and they bring the community with them every single day, every single morning, and you know, whether it be a challenge or be an opportunity for us to prosper. So I love that 100%. Kudos.
Yeah.
So a brag for you in Hobbs that you now have 9 national board certified teachers. What support structures do you provide to help teachers pursue this certification that is just known all around the country?
Well, and I know that we just had some new folks who just received. So we're going to have more than 9. I know of at least 4
Fantastic.
more who received their national boards last week. Plus, we have 3 school nurses who've achieved theirs as well. And so my understanding, it's not, I don't totally know all of the funding sources, but I believe our Permian Strategic Partnership is supporting our national board teachers through that program. So it's very intense, but they provide a lot of feedback. That's the biggest thing is when you submit, then you get feedback and you go and change your practice. That's what education is all about, is getting feedback and adjusting practice to meet the needs of our kiddos. The neat thing about Hobbs is we receive funding for our national boards through the state, but our funding goes directly back to the teacher. The district does not absorb 1 penny of that. Though that incentive goes straight back to teachers.
I love that. I love that. And so when I spoke a little bit in your introduction about something that I'm very passionate about as well, which is, you know, career pathways. You know, we know our kids, um, ultimately we want them to leave us and be able to be financially stable and be able to take care of their families and have a successful, wonderful life. And it might be different for each kid. It might not be college. It might be a career pathway, or it might be military, or any number of ways where kids can grow into successful, independent adults. And so, how do you ensure that career pathway programs are serving all students, including those who might not traditionally pursue tech education?
Wow. So I know enough to be dangerous about our career pathways, but I can tell you a whole lot. We, our district set out nearly a decade ago planning for career tech. We have the basic automotive, Skills USA, ag, those things in our school. I mean, those were what we knew as career tech. We had partnerships with New Mexico Junior College, which is a local college. We had many of those partnerships already with a nursing program. However, in the region we live, we're not a big city, so we don't have access. People aren't just moving to Hobbs because they're like, Oh, let me go. There's malls, there's everything you can imagine. There's healthcare. Those things are pretty scarce in our area. We travel sometimes 4 to 6 hours for medical care, for quality medical care, beyond what you can do at your general practitioner. And so through Permian Strategic Partnership and our community partners, our community has informed our pathways for our career tech. We have a new career tech center that opened 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And we set out to not duplicate programs we already had in place. We didn't want to absorb our nursing program. We want to continue those programs. But our community sat at the table with us and said, these are the kinds of students we need to support our jobs. And so they sat at the table and said, we need these sort of certifications. When our kids leave high school, they leave with certifications through our Career Tech Center. It's an amazing facility. One of the things that it's really interesting, and you'll recognize this coming from an area with poverty, is our Career Tech has this one side, it faces one of our low income apartments. And it wasn't about what we saw looking out. It's what those kids, when they walk out their doors, see looking in, of the possibility that just they're a Hobbs student, they have access. And so we're providing them with access to a future. Many of those families don't go to college, don't even see the vision. We can provide that vision for kids. We have culinary, we have oil and gas, diesel mechanics, welding, auto mechanic, construction trades. It is huge. We're just recently in our revisit to see if those careers are still relevant. So our community partners come together every quarter and assess whether or not we provide them a report every quarter. Let me edit that. They get a report every quarter on how that is. They come together periodically to reevaluate if those are still relevant career pathways. But for kids, we start as early as middle school, as we're starting to do career exploration with them so that they can actually see what careers are possible, and we build their interest from middle school. We're still working with elementary. We're going to start getting there. That's part of our future plans, is how do we even infiltrate third, fourth, and fifth graders to start getting them to think about their career at such a young age.
Yeah, I think that many of us in the education side, especially if you were in an elementary setting, having those career dates and career exploration and bringing in folks from the working community, whether it be the post collegiate type of folks, or folks who are blue collar but making a great living, and just bringing in, because most kids, they only know what they see, right? They don't see everything, right? So I love that. Fantastic. Kudos.
And one of the passions that I have is, one of the things we don't understand, careers that we're building kids for careers that don't even exist. So when I was in school, we had no idea AI would even be a thing in some of the day-to-day things that we use. But we're building kids for careers that don't exist. And so what is our obligation to students to prepare them? So that's a challenge from the get-go. Education has just shifted. But I'm so passionate about, as educators, we have to learn about those careers. Because even in our rural area, the people in front of kiddos don't know. And so what avenues do we give them to explore that? And we don't have to be the keeper of the knowledge. Whereas we went to school and we had the Britannicas, and that was our knowledge base. But now kids have the world at their fingertips, and they will flourish as much as we allow them to. And so we have an obligation to allow them to flourish beyond our community. Because like you said, you only know what your parents, what you've seen on TV, what those careers. There's so many careers available that our kids have no idea.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I was actually having a conversation with a friend not too long ago about those encyclopedias that we used to have in our homes, right? And they were, 15, 20, 30, different volumes. And that was the knowledge that was accessible to us. If you had a school project to do, hopefully you had that at home, or you would go to the library. And kids now have more than that in their pocket, right? In their back pocket. They're carrying it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're carrying it. Thank you again for giving us some time. It means so much to a lot of folks to be able to hear this perspective and that you're sharing. And so, one thing that we learned in researching and preparing for this conversation is that Hobbs has experienced a 1.5% reported annual growth over the past 4 years while serving an oil and gas dependent region. So, how do you plan strategically in an economic, reality that might be a little bit volatile?
That's a tricky question. um, for one of our mottos is we plan for the kids we have in front of us or any kid that walks in the door. And so class sizes, sometimes you think about staffing. Staffing is a difficult piece in that because we run on education is not a for-profit business. You run on a balanced budget. And so planning for staffing cuts in an oil and gas community, it's boom or bust. I just came out of a conversation a little bit ago, and we're okay for a couple of years. But what does that future look like ahead so that it's not doom and gloom when we do see a little bit of a regression? And it's a continual cycle. But one of my goals with instruction department is good instruction is good instruction. We are not going to shift what we do just because our numbers are up and down, because I don't care if you have one kid or 42 kids. You're still providing quality instruction for kiddos. So on the instruction side, it's not so much, but also understanding all the other systems, and that you can't be siloed just and say, well, it's our instruction department. We have to work with finance. We have to work with budgeting, because that comes in when you're trying to plan professional development. And I just came back from an AVID conference. And would we want to train everybody in AVID? Absolutely. But you got to look at budget constraints. How do you do that, and how do you get creative on doing that? So you have to think, as you say, outside the box of how do you approach things sometimes from the back end, and not always head on and say, well, we're going to do AVID training. So how do you build the systems and structures to operate in a system where it might be volatile? Is you have to get creative and you have to braid things together. Because in this business, there's so many things that have a catchy name and a catchy, curriculum. Those pieces, it's good instruction. We follow our Common Core standards, and we provide good instructional sound instructional processes to help support the classroom teacher.
100%. I mean, all of the research says that there's nothing more important than a great teacher, right? Especially if a student gets consecutive great teachers, that they're going to be successful. And similarly, we know that having a strong principal, there's also a lot of research behind the success that
Yes.
schools have when they have a strong principal who has a very organized approach, and teachers who are very clear on what they're doing, and everyone's going down the same track in the same direction. So I agree 100%. So I'll just have one more question for you. Again, what outcomes have you seen in terms of whether graduation rates or employment, and student confidence when they complete the CTEC program?
Wow. I remember the first time I walked over to CTEC. I'm also the bilingual director for the district. And so I'm heavily involved with our students who are learning another language. I was able to see students engaged in the work, that they didn't have to have a translator. It wasn't about the language on the paper. Kids were supporting each other and talking in both languages back and forth. And to see, that's what you call true classroom engagement. You can't really put words to it sometimes, but when you see it, our CTEC allows you to see kids come on the weekend, kids they're in competitions and you just see them and I'm like, wow, they have surpassed me beyond anything I can imagine at 14, 15 years old. Our graduation rate, I believe, because of CTEC. I mean, we've traditionally in our district had a pretty high graduation rate in comparison to the state. I owe that to our leaders and our support teams because we get kids at freshmen and we hold them all the way through. But CTEC just provides this relevance of real world for students. That it gives them that, oh, this is why I need algebra. This is why I need geometry. Instead of sitting in a classroom doing a right angles and cosine, and they actually utilize it. And to me, it's amazing to see that. And you walk over, many of our teachers in that realm are from the field. So you go in, you wouldn't know that. You think they were just trained right out of a college, but they've experienced it and they are so successful because they have relationships with those kiddos and that relevance. You can't say enough about relevance of education these days.
Yeah, I mean, when I was an assistant principal way back in the Stone Ages, right? I remember my principal telling me a story. I was a new young whippersnapper, educational leader under him, and he was telling me he was a high school principal before our relationship, and he had a student who was, missing a lot of school, a kid who wasn't he wasn't poorly behaved, but he just kind of melted into the walls, right? And he was always worried about him. And one day he was going home, the principal, and his car didn't start. And it was dark and it was cold and everyone was gone. And this kid who he was concerned about walked by and said, "You having a problem?" And put up his hood and started his car, right? You talk about the relevance, the tangible talent, and that this kid had developed in that CTE program. Maybe they weren't a 4.0 or 4.2 student, but had a skill set that had been developed and was on its way to mastery and was able to hopefully in the future allow him to have a successful life and be able to take care of his family and all that great stuff. So I agree 100%. Great story. So we probably have a couple of minutes left. If you have anything else you'd like to share about, I don't want to bombard you with questions. Is there anything that you would like to share with folks who may be watching, who are aspiring leaders, who are looking to one day sit in the seats that you and I have sat in? A lesson that you've learned or anything you'd like to share with them about thinking outside the box when we know we have a connection to the future of our kids?
I think one of my big pieces of advice for aspiring leaders is find your resilience and don't quit. I was a principal at an elementary for about 11 years, and that campus was a lower performing, and it took me 7 years at least to really get your feet going. So you can't give up. You just have to keep at it. And then once you see the light, be innovative, feel free. I mean, create a dual language program, try different things. If they fail, oh well. If find the next thing. But that resilience, if you give up, you have to believe in your students, you got to believe in your staff, and you got to believe in families. Your family is a key. It doesn't matter what side of the tracks they come from. They don't keep the good kids in the closet at home. They send us the best that they have. And I haven't met a family or a parent who doesn't care about their baby. They may
Yes,
have different
indeed.
priorities at the moment, but they care about their baby and we owe it to them. So as a leader, you have to respect all views. And I say the principal is the hardest job. That campus leader is the hardest job in education because you get it from everybody. Once you have that resilience and you see the light when kids, teachers, families just keep going. I think we need more quality leaders, and they're hard to find. Our business isn't growing like it used to. And so we've got to cultivate what we have and be intentional about growing it.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much. And thank you to all you folks who decided to give us a few minutes to think about and learn about thinking beyond the box in different communities around our country. And thank you, Dixie, for taking a few minutes with us. And we'll see you next time with another person thinking outside the box and doing all they can to lead our communities and the children who are in them to success. Thank you, everyone.